In the past 3 years, I've beaten over 80 Pokemon games on hard mode. I'd like to think in that time, I've become fairly good at them, but there's something I've been avoiding this whole time, whether out of laziness, complacency, or maybe even a bit of fear. I've neglected perhaps the best that Pokemon has to offer. Beyond what I've managed, there lies a whole other world out there of endless possibilities and frightening challenges. The world I'm speaking of is that of Rom Hacks, Pokemon games that have been edited by fans to create upgraded or even brand new experiences. Whether it's making the AI trainers more challenging, adding in creative story elements, modifying stats to rebalance previously underpowered Pokemon, or even adding in the occasional type change that Pokemon fans have wanted for years, these games can often serve as windows into what Pokemon as a franchise could or even should be. And today, I want to take on a Rom Hack of some of the best remakes in history, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But not only that, I'm gonna hardcore Nuzlocke it, meaning there are rules to my playthrough, like only catching the first Pokemon I find in each new area, my Pokemon levels can't be higher than each gym leader's ace, and if a Pokemon of mine faints, it's boxed permanently. If we lose even a single battle, the run ends and I have to start from the beginning. Join me as I take my first steps into this new world. Join me as I take on Pokemon StormSilver. Our adventure begins in the quaint New Bark Town, where we're given the option to choose between 3 starter Pokemon. Already, there are some things to take note of, as the starters have new potential abilities like Intimidate on Feraligatr to lower the opponent's attack, Natural Cure on Meganium to cure any status condition when it switches, and Typhlosion can get its hidden ability, Flash Fire, from the outset to raise its Fire-type move power when it's hit by one. As much as I love Feraligatr and Intimidate suits it so well, I'm gonna go with Cyndaquil as my starter. If Meganium and Feraligatr do end up getting a Mega Evolution as starters in Legends ZA, I know I'll be using them like crazy, so wait, what even are you, an Anteater that's on fire? He needs some love too, and fire types can be very hard to come by comparatively. Our first steps into this new world symbolize exactly the mystery that awaits, as there are Bidoof available on Route 29 apparently. Definitely was not the case in the originals. We haven't received any Pokeballs yet though, so technically our encounters haven't started. But one thing that will help with them is receiving the Old Rod from a man in Cherry Grove up ahead, opening up some water encounters we otherwise couldn't get until Surf. And to get a sense of what kind of savage we're working with who's going to help us tear this game apart, I decide to chat with Colin at... Oh, okay. Yep, that's the spirit, buddy. Keep it up. Man, these encounters are so incredibly cool. Talo on Route 30? This is going to switch things up massively. I need Pokeballs already. This route is a perfect example of just how much variety and dynamism Rom Hacks can provide. Just comparing the original Soul Silver with StormSilver in terms of available grass encounters is fascinating. I know well enough from the Nuzlockes I've played that what encounters you get can be critical for success, but even more so, it's how you use them. And I have no doubt that will be especially the case for Rom Hacks like this one. Whoa. And alright, the champion of the Sinnoh region, Cynthia, suddenly makes an appearance talking about the god of the Pokemon world, and gives us our first catchable encounter, a Gift Eevee. Now that's an interesting one, as deciding what evolution to evolve it into could prove quite a decision to make. Oh, whoops, looks like things haven't changed between Oak and Mr. Pokemon. Alright, it's settled. Drayano, the creator of StormSilver, is a hero. You can skip over the catching tutorial. Immediately goated. But with that, it's time for our first officially wild encounter on Route 29, which ends up being a Sentret. Ours has a quiet nature giving him plus special attack and minus speed stats, pretty much the worst imaginable. But, hey, at least he already has a new move in Dizzy Punch. Not bad. We do really need to start gathering encounters to counter the first gym though. Now a lot of people tend to forget that Route 49 Lobby 6 is open to the north, and here we find a Numel. What a wicked thing. We do already have a fire type, so not ideal, but I do love Camerupt, and there will be an upcoming challenge that might require all the firepower we can get if I'm honest. Plus, it has a new ability in Anger Point when it evolves, pretty cool. Cherry Grove normally doesn't have an encounter for us until later, but using the old rod we can find a Krabby. I was really hoping for a Magikarp here for Gyarados, but I do love Kingler. Route 30 then nets us a Caterpie because the consensus among the StormSilver community seems to be that Cynthia's gift doesn't count as one. And lo and behold, Butterfree actually received some huge buffs to its base stats. Good for us, but it's frightening knowing some Pokemon I might normally blow off might pose a bigger challenge than anticipated. Pfft, I forgot that Krabby actually walks sideways on the overworld. Now this is the best way to assert your dominance and get the girl of your dreams. Speaking of which, Route 31 nets us a good old Psyduck I named Marina, and she has the perfect nature, timid plus speed and minus attack. Let's go. And in the Dark Cave, I was really hoping for the 4% chance to find a Larvitar to pull through, but we got Bronzor. Still a defensive monster when it evolves, which we could use right about now. Did you challenge the Pokemon gym yet? Let's see, I just emerged from Route 31 for the first time and have a Pokemon that can't even walk properly. What do you think? Well, things are getting real now as we arrive in the first gym destination, Violet City. I have a feeling the guy who gives you a ton of berries in exchange for colored shards is going to be more handy now than ever. Now, in the Pokemon Center, there is a man named Primo, the same guy from the Teachy TV in Fire Red and Leaf Green actually, and using passwords based on your trainer ID, he can give you one of 3 Pokemon, but I'm gonna neglect them for now. But I will grab the wicked cool soul wallpaper from him for our boxes. Now, why skip a viable encounter Pokemon, you might ask? Well, there's an even better guy here, sorry Primo, who offers you a Kanto starter. And as much as I love Bulbasaur, I'm gonna pick Charmander here due to a nearby gym that's scaring the life out of me. But I promise I'm gonna stop collecting fire types like Infinity Stones very soon. But as it turns out, for the Sprout Tower, fire types are definitely a big advantage. With that said, gym leaders and major trainers aren't the only ones who have received buffs in this game. Even regular trainers like the sages in here are more powerful with things like Ralts with same type attack bonus or Stab Confusion, which caused some trouble for us, so we can't let our guard down. And I literally waited until nighttime for the 25% chance to get either a Ghastly or Drifloon, which only appear then, but I got a 10% Glammeow instead. This one hurts, not gonna lie. But hold on. Oh, a 29-point buff to its base HP stat and 4 more attack? Alright then, that might just work. Ascending Sprout Tower overall was a huge wake-up call for me. The trainers were way more challenging than I thought with Mareep, Bulbasaur, and Poliwag, and even moves like Reflect, Hypnosis, and Recover, which for me is so scary to see so early on. And it only got worse from here as we have to take on the Elder himself. And I have to be careful with our levels as the cap of 15 is coming up quick. He leads with a Bellsprout at least, so Colin can take him down in 2 embers after getting hit with a cut. For his incoming Chingling, I really wish I brought Bronzor on second thought, but I go for Earl the Eevee to tank Confusion, then land a super effective bite for a 3rd damage. He then starts Uproar, which does way too much on us, so I have to switch into Bonnie the Numel, but it almost does half even on her. Another brings her to just 3 HP on a Sliver, and Ember does not do much. Uh-oh. I then go into Dawn, our Charmander, who tanks one, then Ember barely doesn't KO, so we tank another before being able to KO that damn thing. Then in comes Hoot Hoot, again a Pokemon we have no coverage against really, but I go into Ian the Krabby as he went for Agility. Now having Shedskin, I thought it would be great if he went for Hypnosis, but he keeps using Confusion unfortunately, but Ian gets a clutch crit on the 2nd Vice Grip to bring him into the red. I then get Gaston the Sentret on the field to tank an attack and then outspeed with Priority Quick Attack to take him down on the next turn. It's not over yet though, as in comes his 4th and final Pokemon, Cherubi. Gaston's Keen Eye ability negates Flash and then we land Dizzy Punch, but no Confusion as Magical Leaf then slams us low and another hits him to a 3rd. We've got 1 good health Pokemon left and fortunately it is a fire type, Colin, as he can eat up Magical Leaf and finally win the battle with an Ember. Alright, this is crazy. Pretty much all 6 of our team members were brought to half or below. Unreal. But we do get a wicked reward, an ore that can evolve Eevee, and with a flying type gym ahead and having been scarred by what I just experienced, I picked the Chilled ore. Realizing at this point that I'm in way over my head, I opt to buff up our team before the gym, fortunately nailing the 40% chance to get some sort of electric Pokemon as we pick up a Magnemite. Then I use the Chill Lure to evolve Earl into a magnificent Glaceon. Should be quite a powerhouse this early in game. Not only that, but while training up, Colin also evolves into a Quilava, and with all the planning I can muster, it's time for the Violet City Gym. Now, one look at the first gym leader, Falkner's team, should tell you what this Rom Hack is all about. You see, he's known for using his dad's cherished bird Pokemon, and it seems he's stolen even more of them in this game, as he's got a full team of 6 Pokemon with absolutely insane movesets like Stab, Aerial Ace, Uproar, Roost Everywhere, and even coverage moves like Poison Jab, Feint Attack, and one-turn Solar Beam due to the Power Herb his Swablu is carrying. I was stunned when I was trying to prep for this team, but without any further ado, let's see if our team can make it through. Falkner leads with a Doduo as I get Brett the Bronzor out, at least resisting both his normal and flying stab attacks. It's a battle of Aerial Ace versus Confusion here, and eventually Brett gets the job done. As predicted, the AI then sends out his only Pokemon that has a super effective move against us, his Pidgeotto with Mud Slap. Now in this case, it's unfortunate that Brett has Heat Proof as an ability and not Levitate, but we do land the Confuse Ray on him. He made it through and lowered our accuracy again, causing us to miss our next Confusion. Then he snapped out of Confusion right away to hit us low. We did land one attack, and then he hit us again to the red, and my attempt to reconfuse him did not work. I'm forced to switch into Earl here, who tanks Aerial Ace reasonably well before landing an Icy Wind, and wham, a one-hit KO. That's some fully evolved power right there. But in comes Chatot with a Stab 90 power Uproar of all things, smashing us below half already. Then Icy Wind also gets the one-hit KO. Whew, a huge threat handled there. In comes Swablu next, and knowing it's going to go for Solar Beam, I take the opportunity to get Colin out there, as even if Earl took him down, we won't handle what's next. This ended up being a crazy back and forth, as we didn't quite have the damage output to outdo his Roost recovery, so I had to switch in Dawn, and even he faced the same struggle. The range with Blaze was incredibly close, so I played it safe and went into Bonnie, as fortunately he went for Mirror Move, but then got a crit on his next attack. Our next attack did burn him though, but he barely survived even the burn and hit us below half before he succumbed to Ember. Then in comes perhaps the biggest threat of all, Farfetch'd, who is now a fighting and flying type Pokemon. And not only that, but he got a plus 98 base stat total buff, including now a base 110 attack and 105 speed. This should be illegal for a first gym. Our only hope is Jose, who 4 times resists Aerial Ace at least and is immune to his Poison Jab too. Thundershock then slams him to the red after 2, and gets Paralysis so we can outspeed that thing on the next turn and fry it. His final Pokemon is then a Murkrow, and with Jose resisting both of his types, we fortunately pulled through, again with 5 of our 6 Pokemon on around a third health. That was absolutely insane. This was definitely a rude awakening as to what exactly I'm up against in this challenge. Being unfamiliar with initial boss fights being so powerful, it was kind of a matter of taking the limited encounters I had and throwing things at the wall in at least somewhat of a strategic manner. I can't believe we made it through deathless though. My first ever Rom Hack badge is in the books. With that badge allowing us to use Rock Smash, an idea comes to mind. Not only can we get colored shards in the Ruins of Alph to exchange for berries, but we can also guarantee a rock type encounter here by repeatedly smashing them with the help of none other than Dr. HMs, an illegitimate albeit necessary encounter who of course won't feature in any battles. This nets us a Geodude using the third last ball that I have, so that was a close one. After getting the mystery egg from the Pokemart, Falkner then appears as if he hasn't given us enough trauma, but it's to give us his number for a rematch. Now that's another really cool addition to the game. He then immediately proceeds to call us about the rough shape his gym scaffolding is in. Falkner, are you flying high? What kind of conversation starter is that? Scaffolding? Really? On Route 32, this guy tries to sell us a Slowpoke tail for $1 million, and when I say I can't afford it, he goes, "And I thought kids these days were loaded. What in the world possibly inspired that idea, sir? Have you seen the economy?" Up ahead in Union Cave, we have a wicked encounter opportunity as we can use a repel to make our way to the basement without encountering anything, and here only there's a 5% chance to find each a Gibble or a Bagon. But nope, we got an Aeron I named Baker. Still not bad though, I'll take it. Emerging out of the cave lands us on Route 33, the only place in the game you can find a Krogunk, which would be really cool, but instead we got an Apom that I name Howie. And with it being able to learn Fake Out by level up instead of breeding in this game, that's actually a really cool pickup. And because we technically haven't picked up a new Barktown encounter yet, I went back to hatch our egg there, which gives us a Togepi with Super Luck, which I named Charlie. Now Drayano did something quite cool with this mon that we'll see in a little bit. Before that, we arrive in Azalea Town where the next gym is, quite a beautiful and peaceful place. Well, when Team Rocket isn't here. Surrounded by nature, probably where I'd retire to if I lived in the Pokemon world, to be honest. And interestingly, there's a new addition here, a guy hiding behind Kurt's house who gives you the Thief TM, which you can use to steal type boosting items off of wild Pokemon, like a magnet from a wild Magnemite for instance. Such a useful move and usually only available way later around the 7th badge in the Rocket hideout in Mahogany Town. Amazing. After Kurt breaks his back, we're then able to pick up another encounter in the Slowpoke well, which ends up being a Zubat. Initially, I was sad it wasn't a Slowpoke, but remembering the insane gym leader challenge we have upcoming, this might actually be a really good thing. While training up, we also have Dawn evolve into a Charmeleon before taking on the Team Rocket executive Proton, whose team has definitely received a boost. And for this battle, I've added Martina the Psyduck back on our roster for a particular reason. He leads with a Voltorb, and Gert is a great counter, being immune to or resisting all of his moves but toxic, and fortunately he just went for Screech, so a stab super effective Magnitude 7 can pulverize him. In comes Cacnea next as anticipated, offering us a great chance to switch into Dawn to tank a couple resisted Needle Arms and respawn with 2 Embers for the KO. Or so I thought, as he used Priority Sucker Punch before our second one, bringing us to just 14 HP before our berry activates. Yikes, the AI definitely knows what it's doing now. In comes Coughing next, and this is why I brought Martina along. She has Damp, which prevents opposing Pokemon from using explosion moves, but he goes for 90 power stab Sludge Bomb on the switch, already smashing her below half. Well, that's not good. Realizing he'll probably go for it again since he's at full health, I go into Jose, who's immune. Nice. Now I double switch into Colin, predicting the super effective Flamethrower, which activates our Flash Fire. Incredible, as we can now do over half with a boosted Ember before getting Toxicked, then land another to KO. Who'd have thought a Coughing could be so tough to deal with? His final Pokemon is then Zubat, for which I can switch into Jose again for the resistance and one-hit KO with Thundershock. You know it's a Rom Hack when even Proton poses a challenge. As it stands, in addition to our party, here are the encounters that are ready in our box. Or our boxy, apparently.
My name is Boxy. Most of you know me as, most of you know me as Boxy.
And this is the cool thing I'm noticing about Rom Hacks too. You kind of develop a roster of Pokemon that you can rotate between depending on what you need, and evidently it's absolutely necessary when facing such big challenges. And preparing for the gym, I decide to keep Charlie, who evolves into a Togetic, and amazingly enough, StormSilver gives Togetic Tri-Attack at level 21. Incredible, as Togetic's moveset has always been terrible otherwise. Well, no more delaying the inevitable. It's time to take on the second gym, the Azalea one, led by the Bug-type specialist gym leader Bugsy, and dare I say, his team looks even more challenging than Faulkner's. With 5 fully evolved Pokemon, a lead Butterfree who again has received insane stat buffs, and not only that, but a couple of his Pokemon have Rain Dance to weaken Fire-type moves against the team, and are holding Damp Rocks to extend its duration even. Couple that with insane stab moves and even Swords Dance on Scyther, an already ridiculously powerful Pokemon for this early on, and we've got quite the challenge ahead. After theory crafting for a while, it's time to try out my best plan. I lead with Gert against him, and as I hoped, he sets up Rain Dance since he has no super effective moves against us. Bad for our fire types, but good for the start of the battle at least, as Gert can land a 4-time super effective Rock Throw to obliterate that bulked up Butterfly. This baits in Heracross, a bit strange as its only fighting move is Counter, unlike his Pinsir, which I was expecting that has Vital Throw. However, I'm pretty sure the AI will try to use it here, so I take the opportunity to switch into Barbara the Zubat, and the prediction works. Now unfortunately Zubat evolves the level just after the cap, otherwise he'd be a monster here with 4 times bug resistance, but even still we can tank an Aerial Ace below half before our berry heals us, and land the stab 4 times super effective wing attack for the one-hit KO. So far, so good. This then baits in Yanma as it has ancient power, so I go into Gert, but he went for Detect anyway. On the next turn he then U-turns, and I knew it would be Pinsir with that fighting move, but we at least hit him to half. I have to switch though, so it's back into Barbara to 4 times resist Vital Throw, then somehow he outspeeds on the next turn with Bind. Not what my calcs told me was going to happen, but at least we can take him down with another after getting brought below half HP. Back in comes Yanma, and he went for Air Cutter as I switched in Gert, bringing us low before our berry. He then U-turns again, this time into Beedrill though, who gets wiped off the map with a Rock Throw as well. This Yanma is pivoting like crazy, and I have nothing I can safely switch in if he U-turns again, as it's guaranteed to be Scyther, but an Air Cutter is more likely due to the damage output, and that high critical hit ratio makes me nervous, but Gert avoids the crit on just 6 HP and pulverizes that Dragonfly. We've managed his typings exceptionally well so far, but in comes the biggest threat, Technician Scyther with Swords Dance. And I thought for a while here, but being unfamiliar with the StormSilver AI, I realize if he uses Swords Dance here, our entire team would get swept by a Stab Technician boosted +2 wing attack from a base 110 attack Pokemon. And if he does use it, that provides a stellar opportunity for an easy one-hit KO, so I decide to risk it, and nope, Gert gets taken down by a wing attack, the end of our Rocky Boy and our first death of the run. Better to play it safe than sorry, I suppose, as now I get Jose out there as he Swords Dances, but we land the Thunder Wave to paralyze him, crippling his speed stat. Now we can outspeed with Jose's... Oh no, I forgot to teach the Shockwave TM we got from the Azalea Pokemon Center, so Thunder Shock doesn't even do half, and he Swords Dances again. This is dangerous as we hit him again, but don't quite KO on the red before his berry, but he stays paralyzed. Yes, this gives us a chance to outspeed and land the final attack to do him in. Whew boy, I cannot believe I forgot Shockwave while doing my preparations. That almost costed us big time. But we got the second badge and the U-turn TM for winning. It's a time for celebration, but also for mourning, as we have to deposit Gert, who arguably saved the run almost single-handedly. We'll always remember you, buddy. Thank you for your sacrifice.
Только мертвый спокойствию.
Before heading onward from Azalea, we have one last challenge, our rival Silver. And with an added Murkrow and a Zubat being replaced with a Kadabra compared to the originals, this battle is looking like quite a challenge with no real answer for his team coming to mind at the outset. But I realized we have one possible answer in our box, Baker the Aeron, who likes to bake, yes, but evidently also likes to cook. I wanted to hold on to a Rock Tomb TM for perhaps a better option down the road, so I led with him against Murkrow and tried to set up Iron Defense, but Murkrow has Haze, getting rid of any stat boosts immediately. So I just repeatedly used Metal Claw as we resist every other attack that he has, eventually downing him while only taking a quarter damage. In comes Ghastly next, and it has a brutal Mean Look and Curse combo, but thankfully after Mean Looking us on the first turn, it used Spite on the second instead, so we could knock it down with another. Kadabra then comes in and uses Disable, so Metal Claw is no longer an option. But with only resisted Confusion, he opts to lower our accuracy with Kinesis instead. We do have Headbutt as an alternative, and I'm very thankful I taught it as a backup, meaning despite missing an attack, we can knock it out in 3 hits. His final Pokemon is then his Croconaw, and strangely enough, it doesn't have a water move at this point. But even still, our accuracy is terrible, so I go into our other Steel type, Jose, who also resists all of his attacks and can fry him with 2 Thunder Shocks. Our Steel types definitely came in to save the day here, but I only anticipate his battles getting harder. And it seems that Silver's hatred of Team Rocket has also hardened. I wonder why that could be. That win now grants us access to the Ilex Forest, where a bunch of new Pokemon now spawn. And looking at the next gym, I was really hoping for the 20% chance to get a Shroomish, but oh dear goodness, Lediba. Pretty much the worst possible thing we could imagine. Oh. Ledian now gets Iron Fist by default, the Elemental Punches by level up, and plus 60 to its base attack? Alright, hold on now. And deep in the forest, I found an amazing cameo as the Sinnoh region gym leader Gardenia appears, and let me tell you, I'm not gonna read what she says here, but I was utterly aghast. I legit just sat there for 30 seconds looking like this. Utter disbelief. Anyway, in the gate ahead, it turns out the girl who gives you the taunt TM has a Mothim instead of a Butterfree. A pretty cool touch for a Pokemon that gets no recognition whatsoever. But more importantly, Cynthia's here and she gives us a wicked item for our next encounter, the Odd Keystone. That's right, by going back to Azalea Town, we technically didn't receive an encounter here, as the Slowpoke Well is its own area inside, but the outside is still within the town. So throwing the Odd Keystone down, it has none other than a Spiritomb come out, the reason why I didn't pick one of the Hoenn starters that are offered here otherwise. I think a Ghost type is going to be imperative if we're to survive what's ahead. Back in the forest, I make sure to have both Howie the Apom and Fiona the Glammeow learn Headbutt from the Move Tutor, a great stab move for them, before we then make it to Route 34 where there's a new mandatory double battle, and goodness me, you really have to be on your guard at all times, as it was only thanks to good type coverage that we made it out of this one unscathed. Winning that battle gives us access to the grass though, where we can find our next encounter, a Gulpin. Cool. I may be one of the few people who really loves Swalot, so I'm thrilled. The time has come for us to arrive in the biggest city in the game, Goldenrod, where the next gym is, and a ton of cool pickups, including not only the Bulk Up and Calm Mind TMs apparently, but also a Sinnoh starter Pokemon. And I decide to go with my boy Turtwig. Apparently he can get Shell Armor in this game, which prevents it from being crit, which is so good in Nuzlocke, but we didn't get that ability. Ah well, it's still a great grass type. And in the basement of the department store, I had the craziest thing happen. I talked to some guy who had his Claydol teleport me to some room where all these appliances are, presumably where you can switch between Rotom forms. It's stuff like this that just makes Romhack so stellar and creative. Not only that, but the game corner has a bunch of Pokemon chilling around, and yes, I can finally avoid the insane casino grind by buying coins here like you could in the Kanto games. Ah, what a relief. I then went to check out the Goldenrod basement and... Lyra, hello. Wait, what? A battle? I was shooketh. I had no idea. You never get to battle her in the originals, never mind a surprise one. I was not ready at all. This is not good. I had no idea what Pokemon she had, nor had I prepared my team properly. Howie goes in against her lead Nidorina and it misses Thunder after our Headbutt does a quarter. We then flinch it on the next hit and then bring it into the red with another before Blizzard hits for a third. She then uses a Lemonade of all things to heal? That's new. Before we repeat the same process and get another flinch on the second, then we avoid Blizzard after getting into the red, being able to take her down on the next turn. Okay, that was an extraordinarily lucky start at least. Her incoming Marill has an accuracy lowering plus focus punch combo setup, quite nasty, but Howie pulled through with a flinch, followed by a crit to get through unscathed. Howie is an absolute legend, what in the world? But then, in comes a fully evolved Ninetales out of nowhere, and it has 90 power flamethrower while we have 2 Pokemon weak to it. Oh no. I think we only have 2 Pokemon that could survive even one of those, so I go into Charlie who gets brought to nearly half, then another hits us to just 5 HP on a Sliver before our Berry, then we land the Yawn. Goodness gracious. I then switch into our only other choice, Irene, who gets hit below half already, but our Berry helps as Ninetales then goes to sleep. Dream Eater hardly does anything but does give us some recovery at least. Then I hit a feint attack on the next turn for a quarter. However, she wakes up already and lands Confuse Ray, and we hit ourselves in confusion. No way. Another brings us to just 6 HP, and we hit ourselves in confusion again, and down goes Irene, the Pokemon I was hoping would bring us through the 3rd gym leader. I am devastated. I then get Fiona out there for the priority fake out, and then I tried to go for Hypnosis, but she outsped, and we do survive on just 4 HP, but get burned before putting it to sleep. Fiona didn't have to go down, but the burn damage has just the range to knock her out. Poor little kitty. I then get Charlie out there, taking the opportunity to heal up with Soft Boiled, then go for Tri Attack, hoping for Super Lock to pull through, but nope, as her Berry then heals her, but she stays asleep, and then we get the crit to just a Sliver, but she wakes up and confuses us. Oh man, this is too much, as we then hit ourselves too. Another Flamethrower hits us to a quarter, then we snap out, finally being able to take that demon down. Her final Pokemon is then Roselia, and knowing we could tank a resisted Magical Leaf, I stay in, then Soft Boiled. Whew. That brings us in safe range to hit her with Tri Attack to the red with a crit, which also paralyzes, allowing us to outspeed on the next turn and end the battle. You know, as a player, I think the surprise Lyra battle is super cool, but as a Nuzlocker, that was insane. I need to make sure I know what I'm getting into from now on. In one sense, I almost got punished for exploring willy-nilly. Rest in peace, Fiona and Irene. You'll be missed. In preparation for the next gym, we at least have a bunch of cool evolutions to offer some help, like Butterfree, Grottle, Crobat via Friendship, Furret, and Ledian. Plus, we can also go ahead of Goldenrod a bit to pick up new encounters, such as in the National Park. And I was really hoping for the 5% chance for a Heracross, but nope, Combee. But at least it is female, so we can get a Vespiquen for the first time on the channel, I'm pretty sure. We didn't get the new Intimidate variant though, which I was really hoping for, and because of that, I know what I need to do. No, not offer Vespiquen as a ritual sacrifice, come on. Instead, I head to Route 35 where we can guarantee an Old Rod Magikarp encounter since we already caught a Psyduck, activating Species Clause so we get to re-roll. With an Impish plus defense and minus special attack nature and Intimidate after evolving, I'm hoping this will be the answer we need after losing Spiritomb for the normal gym. Speaking of which, it's time to face the third gym leader, Whitney. We all know she's infamous for her overpowered Miltank, but now, instead of just a Clefairy alongside it, she's got a whopping full team of 5 other scary threats. It took me forever to conceive of even a remotely viable plan, but I think I came up with something that might work. Against her lead Lickitung, I go in with Gyarados for the Intimidate, hoping that without a super effective move and with her attack lowered, she'd opt for Disable so I can safely make the switch into Charlie. And it works. Now I use Charm to lower her attack by a further 2 stages, and then she hits a Body Slam and gets the paralysis on the first turn. No way. That's the one thing I was hoping not to happen. Not only does she outspeed now, but we stay paralyzed after getting hit again. Then she lands an Attract too, but Charlie makes it through for the yawn. I was hoping to get one more charm off, but we stayed paralyzed, but she stayed asleep and I can now enact the next phase of my plan by switching in Mike the Ledian. Now, I'm sure you might ask, why would you ever send a Ledian into battle? Well, I taught him Swords Dance using the Game Corner reward, and with Lickitung asleep for 3 turns, I could get us to +6 attack. Then, we have Iron Fist boosted priority super effective Mach Punch which one-hit KOs Lickitung immediately. Then, +6 Ice Punch even downs her subsequent Wigglytuff and Clefable. But then comes her Miltank, which actually survives Mach Punch in the red and hits the 4x super effective rollout, but because it hasn't built up in power yet, Mike tanks it below half and can out-prioritize on the next turn to take down her biggest threat. Lopunny then gets downed in 1 priority hit as well, and then her final Pokemon is an Intimidate Stantler, which yes, lowers our attack, but still, being at +5 and with the Iron Fist boost, Mike makes it a perfect 6 for 6. I will never doubt Ledian again. With proper setup, we managed to make Mike an absolute terror for Whitney's team, and he pretty much single-handedly won us our 3rd badge. A monster debut performance. Moving on ahead, StormSilver makes another amazing change, this time at the Pokeathlon Dome. You see, in the originals, some of the evolutionary stones were locked behind the post-game, but now we can pick up things like the shiny stone to evolve Charlie fully into a Togekiss. Makes me so happy to see that. On Route 36, we then pick up a Vulpix, and then we get yet another fire type on Route 37 with Growlithe, but it doesn't have Intimidate, which is kind of rough. I know, I promised no more fire types, but it's not my fault, okay? They keep coming to me. With those 2 pickups under our belt, we next arrive in Ecruteak City, one of the most important ones in terms of Johto's lore. And they actually lock both of the next routes in this game, so no more extra encounters ahead of the gym. And what do you know, Sinnoh's gym leader Fantina is here in the mart, and dare I say her cameo is much better and more appropriate than Gardenia's. That's a relief. We do get one last encounter opportunity within the Burn Tower here, which ends up being a Duskull, which would give us some super effectiveness against the next gym, but we can't evolve it until after the cap, and is of course weak to Ghost itself. Silver then challenges us to battle in here, and this time I'm gonna bring back an old friend, Earl, who I now taught the Ice Beam TM from the Game Corner, making him an ice-cold monster. Being able to take down Murkrow and Elekid, with our berry restoring us back above half after low kick. Haunter then confused us, but Earl doesn't give a damn and freezes that boy like he's on Hoth. Kadabra did disable the move, but having Icy Wind as a backup and great specially defensive bulk meant we could 2-shot it with a 3rd health remaining. Our newly caught Connie then proves to be the ultimate Croconaw counter, intimidating him and then taking him down in 3 attacks. Ooh, it looks like even the Legendaries are scared of Gaston's supreme power. Looking at the 4th gym leader, Morty, I realized we have nothing good to counter him in our entire roster. I did evolve Ian into Kingler, which is something, and Vulpix using the Firestone, and I thought Drought Ninetales could pull something off, but alas, ours has Flash Fire instead. Another idea was for it with the Shadow Claw TM that I just picked up along with the Metronome item to increase its power every time it's used consecutively for the sweep, but Gaston has a minus speed nature and would get outdone by his speedy Mons. But a semblance of a plan comes to mind as I also chuck a Firestone at Growlithe Head to trigger Arcanization. But I accidentally used it on Ian first. Whoops. Oh no, what have I done? Okay, I see Ian's evolution hasn't done much for him in terms of his IQ. He's still walking sideways. Gosh, this is so embarrassing. Well, actually, maybe it'll cause the 4th gym leader, Morty, the ghost specialist, to underestimate us. That would be good. And here's the plan. Since his Duskull doesn't have any offensive moves that can affect our normal type Gaston, and Furret has high attack, he'll use Will-O-Wisp to try and burn him, at which point I'll switch into Ella the Ninetales for the Flash Fire boost, then we'll sweep his team with extra power Flamethrower. Oh, he preemptively switched from Duskull. Okay, this AI definitely knows what it's doing. Entire plan ruined. We're winging it. I have Ellie use Flamethrower on his incoming Shuppet, which barely doesn't KO. Then he uses Swagger to confuse us, but I had attached a Lumberry to heal us, so we can land another after he heals, and this time it gets the range to KO. In comes Mischievous next, and with it having Power Gem, I need to switch. So I go into Gaston, and he went for Mean Look. Interesting, as now a Shadow Claw has its high crit ratio pay off as the one and only Gaston pulls off magic. His Haunter then can't do anything but put us to sleep due to our normal typing, as we barely don't KO, but then he misses Hypnosis, opening up a chance for Gaston the Magician to succeed again. But then in comes his Gengar, which immediately lands one. I know he won't use it again now, nor will he Shadow Ball, so I go into Dolly and Thunderbolt does even more than I thought it would. Uh-oh. There's nothing. I can switch into 2 consecutive attacks from a Gengar, especially with Thunderbolt being super effective against 3 of our team members, so I have no choice but to let Dolly go. But this opens up a chance for Ella to come in and outspeed, hitting it right to half before we get hit below half. The problem is, I don't know if we have the range for the KO as it looks incredibly close. I mean, he's right on half. It might be a roll. Ultimately, I decide not to risk it and go into Barbara knowing that he'll Shadow Ball, not T-Bolt, as she's our only other Pokemon that I know can safely outspeed and with super effective bite can get the range. Wonderful. Duskull then gets down by 2 of them, landing a Shadow Ball on us in the process, and then his final Pokemon is Sableye, who's not weak to it due to its dark typing. But Connie is the perfect answer, lowering his attack power and ending him in 2 guaranteed 40 HP damage Dragon Rages to seal the deal. As much as I love Arcanine, Dolly's sacrifice was definitely needed after our initial plan fell through. Rest in peace, doggy. Nope, no, it's dead. It's dead. Well, I was wondering why Gaston was looking at me so intensely while I was fishing. It was kind of making me nervous. But it turns out the encounter I'm looking for is found by surfing, which we can actually do now with that badge in hand. Whoops, I am not going to reveal how much time I wasted fishing up Magikarp there, that's for sure. And our encounter here is Poliwag, who upon evolving has received some insane buffs, so I can't wait to see her in action. In the Western Gate, all of a sudden the champion of the Hoenn region, or the former champion at least, Steven appears and offers us a steel plate. Here, don't drop it. Oh, with the west of Eckertique now open, we can hit up Route 38 to get our next encounter, a Miltank. Just a 5% chance to find here. We did have the potential to find a 20% electric and dark Intimidate Luxio here, but hey, thick fat Miltank can be quite great too and is super rare. And there are other places we could find a Luxio. And what can I say, my favorite hobby ever is getting normal types before the fighting gym. Now, I made a promise to myself here. I said, Sylph, you cannot do your running gag you have with your viewers about pronouncing the Safari Zone Warden's name in increasingly weird ways just because, I mean, well, what in the world is that name? As you're gonna have a bunch of new viewers coming to see a Rom Hack from you for the first time, and bah. Okay, I feel like Ash with his Pikachu in that Pikachu forest. Hitney, yes, that's her name, has made so many new friends here, it really would be the right thing to do, but you know what, forget it, you're coming with me. And after taking half an hour to feed the sick Miltank Oranberries, we get Pokeball Seals, which are always fun to spice up our battle entrances. Quickly arriving in the next city, Olivine, we won't be here for too long, but in the Pokemart, this girl says, "My Butterfree came from my boyfriend overseas. It carried some mail from him. Want to know what it says? Let's see." Oh my. I'm so sorry. Hey, Gym Leader Volkner from Sinnoh! What is with this guy in lighthouses? He really has an unhealthy obsession with them. Our Route 39 encounter ends up being Eradicate, and it does have Hustle, which is pretty cool, but a minus attack nature, so we'll shove him in the box for now. Olivine City itself has a really cool encounter situation for us, as since Magikarp would activate Species Clause, we can fish until we get the 5% Staryu, which I'm thinking might just be an answer to the next gym. Route 40 then has a 2% chance to find a Fione by surfing apparently, which I couldn't resist the opportunity to try and get, but we got a Wingull instead. It was worth the try, I guess. We then arrive in Cianwood City where... Now in Cianwood there's something amazing. The move reminder, who in the originals is locked all the way near the 8th badge. This way we can get things like Air Slash on Charlie, and also apparently the Choice Band from a guy in the Pokemon Center. Incredible, as the Choice Specs is usually available around here, but not the band too. That's so cool. Now for our encounter here, we have many more places we can fish, so instead I agree to handle this guy's Shuckle, who Silver apparently tried to steal. It's got a great nature, and I was hoping to get the new Solid Rock ability to weaken the power of incoming super effective moves, but we got Gluttony instead. Still quite great though. And preparing for the next gym, and in light of the new level cap, we have a ton of new awesome evolutions like Swalot, Camerupt, Pelipper, Starmie, Golduck, Torterra, and many more. We're developing quite a cool selection of Pokemon to work with. In the Cianwood City gym, I employ a really fun plan, attaching the Choice Band to Barbara, giving her enough power to sweep through most of the trainers with Wing Attack. When she got close to the new level cap, I could then utilize Charlie with his newly learned Air Slash. And I attached the wide lens from the Game Corner on him because not only does Air Slash have imperfect accuracy, but he also has Hustle, so this sort of resolves that. However, looking at the 5th gym leader, Chuck's team, we're gonna have to find another way, as he's got electric and rock moves throughout his team, in addition to things like Fake Out, Substitute, and Spore. Now in the original games, he normally has 2 Pokemon, so this is definitely a big fix in terms of gameplay. But another big fix comes in the form of the Psychic TM being available in the Ruins of Alph using Surf. You see, normally you can get all the other similar power moves for other types like Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Flamethrower, but Psychic was always locked in the post-game until now. And attaching the Metronome item on our newly caught and evolved Milton the Starmie, we could outspeed and blast his Primate with a 90 power stab super effective move from a base 100 special attack Pokemon. But my calcs were off it seems, as he survives, but thankfully tried to go for Substitute, not Thunder Punch, so after he heals we can hit him twice more to get the knockout. Okay, that was a close one, but in theory that was a really good thing, as we now have 3 consecutive Psychics under our belt, meaning Metronome has hyperpowered our attacks, so Breloom and Hitmonchan get wiped off the map with ease. Then in comes Poliwrath, and even with its base stat buffs, the Metronome item comes in clutch and offers us enough power to one-hit KO it, and his supremely bulky Hariyama too. Milton is going nuts, as we're already on his final Pokemon, Hitmonlee. Unfortunately, it does break our Metronome streak with a priority Fake Out, but I desperately want to give Milton the 6-0 sweep, and my calcs were correct this time, as Hitmonlee gets down by 1 shot. Alright, that combo was like a cheat code for that gym. 5 badges acquired. And I headed all the way back to Olivine to go rescue the sick Amphi, and... Ha! You can't shock the shit out of my Pokemon this time. I brought a ground type to predict your fake illness antics. Oh. But... Baoba says he's in trouble? Well, this is new. It turns out, heading toward the Safari Zone, Team Rocket has taken it over completely. That's right, a whole new story element has been added to the game, arguably a Team Rocket gauntlet, with tons of challenging battles. I mean, even the regular grunts have fully evolved Beedrill, Camerupt, Cacturn. They're pretty tough. And what's also cool is that the Sinnoh partner trainers are here, including Mira, a trainer who has the highest average special attack stat in the entire franchise. And I brought along along our good old friend Bonnie, who's now fully evolved, to help out. And having a bulky ground and fire type definitely did help, although having to face things like Licky Licky and Sharpedo was terrifying, only mitigated by Gyarados' double Intimidate on them. Not wanting to get distracted by the insane gauntlet, I also make sure to pick up our next encounter in the Cliff Cave here, which ends up being a ball toy. And I think I know what I'm going to use this for. Before that though, we have to challenge Executive Petrol apparently, and his team is a far cry from what he normally runs with. Fortunately, Connie could intimidate his lead Raticate, which also missed its Hyper Fang, presumably due to hustle. Then it hits a Super Fang on the next turn for half of our health before our berry activates and we can take him down with a second Aqua Tail. In comes his Weezing next, and knowing the Thunder is coming, I can switch into Alberto for the immunity, then go for our Heatproof Bronzong to tank Fire Blast before our berry, then landing the Stab super effective Extra Sensory, which doesn't quite take him out. Bonnie is the obvious answer here, resisting Fire Blast, but then he uses Pain Split on the next turn, giving him some recovery and us some damage. But our Lava Plume still has enough firepower to do him in. In comes his Skuntank next, and I know Double Edge is his greatest damage output here, and my calcs tell me that we should survive, and Bonnie tanks it on just 6 HP on its Sliver before our berry, then the 90 power Stab super effective Earth Power crushes him. His final Pokemon is then a Golbat, who Brett resists all of the moves of, so he's able to get good damage on him before getting put to sleep by Hypnosis. So I make the swap into Barbara to exert Zubat line supremacy, downing him with a Choice Banded Fly to win us the battle. Working with Marley later, who has the highest average team speed stat in the franchise, we make it through another double battle, and I just cannot get over how cool and challenging this whole thing is. Near the end, we encounter Executive Ariana, and Milton is the perfect counter to her lead Arbok, or so I thought, as we barely don't KO, but then she misses Gunk Shot. Whew, Milton, you are one lucky starfish. Her Vileplume is also weak to Psychic, but is too bulky, so I play it safe going into Barbara to resist Petal Dance. But she did get a crit. Regardless, she's no match for a Choice Banded Fly, getting knocked out immediately. As hoped, this baits in Jinx, for which Brett is a stellar counter, resisting all of her attacks, and she missed Lovely Kiss too, even though I had attached a Lumberry which would have healed us. And one super effective Gyro Ball annihilates her due to the huge difference in speed between the two Mons. Her final Pokemon is then Honchkrow, who Connie can cripple with Intimidate, plus, as hoped, she went for Swagger, raising our attack hugely at the cost of getting confused, but I prepared with the Lumberry here as well, healing us and allowing us to unleash with a +2 Aqua Tail to nail that goth birdie into the ground. At this point, I went up ahead to look around the Safari Zone for Archer, assuming he'd be here somewhere, and what do you know, he was in the Pokemon Center along with his fake Nurse Joy who won't heal my Pokemon. This is too good. And you see, this is what I love about this Rom Hack. Not only was there a super challenging gauntlet, but they also incorporate some story into it, with Riley appearing, and one would think these Sinnoh trainers are all just random fan service cameos, but it actually does make sense in the lore, as Riley says they're all here for the Battle Frontier, which is nearby, and the 5 partner Sinnoh trainers are known for participating in post-game battle facilities like the Sinnoh Battleground, and as a partner in the Johto Battle Tower too. I can't explain how happy this kind of thing makes me, and apparently we're set to battle against Archer in a double battle with Riley by our side. Let's see how this goes. Against their Zangoose and Scyther, I go in with Brett for resistance, as Absol gets immediately one-shot by close combat. Yikes. And Scyther uses Bug Bite to steal our Lumberry before Gyro Ball hits Zangoose low. Riley's signature Lucario then comes in and just barely lives a close combat on a Sliver before it respawns and KOs Zangoose with a Blaze Kick. Unfortunately, Intimidate Houndoom then comes in, so I switch into Bonnie as Lucario gets taken down. And we resist all of Scyther's moves, so I stay in to get hit by Feint Attack by Houndoom on the next turn as Ursaring's now in, and it KOs Scyther with Aerial Ace as Bonnie's Earth Power then just barely doesn't KO Houndoom. A Fire Blast and Vice Grip combo from their Houndoom and incoming Mawile bring us both low before Bonnie's Berry, but another attack literally takes down all 3 Pokemon on the field. Whoops. Bonnie, you gotta chill out a little. Now with all 3 of Riley's Pokemon downed already, that means we're operating 1v2 against a rampaging Gyarados and Granbull. Uh-oh. But it's time to give them a taste of their own medicine as I predict the waterfall from their Gyarados and bring out Connie for the double Intimidate. With both their attacks lowered, I'm feeling a bit better as I switch into Milton, but Gyarados Dragon Dances as I feared, and my plan gets shot even more by Granbull roaring, and it brings out Bonnie again. Well, at least this allows me to re-intimidate as Granbull then roars again and brings in Milton. Yes, we have one more chance, but Gyarados goes up for bounce as we then miss the Thunderbolt KO, and Granbull goes for lick and gets the paralysis. You've gotta be kidding me. As bounce and headbutt bring us below half before our berry, but Milton comes in clutch, making it through paralysis and the headbutt flinch chance to say no thank you to their paraflinch strategy, and 4 times super effective Thunderbolting that Gyarados out of the sky. A switch back into Gyarados against Granbull has this thing's attack super low, so ultimately it was a matter of navigating around their roars and aquatailing it twice in a row into oblivion. Alright, that was an insane challenge. The whole Rocket Gauntlet was nuts, and we could have very well been swept with that Dragon Dancing Gyarados, but we made it through. Our next few encounters around this area end up being Seal, Farfetch'd, and Jigglypuff on routes 47 and 48 and the Safari Zone, worthwhile pickups. But now it's time to head back to Olivine for our next major challenge, the 6th gym leader Jasmine, whose team is insanely powerful now. I was thinking Camerupt having 2 types super effective against Steel would be the obvious answer, but her lead Metang has Earthquake, but while thinking, it then clicked. With the new level cap, we can now evolve our good old Dawn from way back in the beginning of the run into a monster Charizard. Thank goodness Drayano edited Gyms 6 and 7 so they don't have the same level cap anymore. Not only that, but our other fire starter, Colin, can also evolve into a Typhlosion. See, I told you we'd need this firepower. However, Jasmine still has many tricks up her sleeve, like a heat-proof Bronzong which also has Damp Rock and Rain Dance, which nullifies any of my hopes of pulling off a clean fire sweep. But after strategizing forever, I did come up with an alternative plan. It's time to see if Dawn is truly the Dawn, as I lead with him against her Metang, and don't worry, I didn't forget to heal. In fact, I purposefully had Dawn hurt because I am a cruel person. Okay, actually it's to activate Blaze, Charizard's ability, powering up his fire moves and one-hit KOing both her Metang and her Magneton off the bat, the latter of which I knew would be baited in due to its electric super effectiveness. But then in comes the bane of my existence, Bronzong. Not even Blaze with the charcoal attached can give us enough range on this thing, so I'm forced to switch into Alberto predicting the Rain Dance, but she went for Psychic. Interesting, as we can outspeed on the next turn nonetheless, destroying her with a hyperpowered Earthquake since she doesn't have Levitate. Torterra is a monster. In comes Fortress next, and I have an interesting play to make here. I go for Leech Seed, after which she uses Bug Bite, which hits us hard with super effective damage and gives her our Citrus Berry recovery too. Now this would reactivate her Sturdy ability again, however that's what the Leech Seed is for, making sure she can never use it no matter what. Stellar, as I now know I can safely bring in Colin knowing the Bug Bite would be coming, and again the same thing with the Berry and Leech Seed, allowing Colin the knockout opportunity with Lava Plume on the next turn. Then comes her ace, Steelix, and with it also having Sturdy, it kinda looks like it's game over here, as not even Charizard can attack twice with its low health. However, that's what our new encounter is for. Our now evolved Claydol, Isaac, who knows just what to do, being immune to Earthquake thanks to Levitate, hitting it with one Psybeam to break Sturdy, avoiding a 75% accuracy Iron Tail, and then going back into Colin, knowing she'd never use a ground move against the Levitate Pokemon, so we can Lava Plume her into the Netherworld. Her final Pokemon is then Skarmory, who has no chance as Colin then eviscerates her and wins us our next badge. I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified looking at her team with the various threats that it had, but thorough planning and a good understanding of the AI helped us pull through unharmed. With Mount Mortar finally accessible in this game, quite late compared to the originals, we can now seek a brand new encounter, and unfortunately it turns out you need the Rock Climb HM to get to the basement, where there's a 5% chance to find each a Metang and a Pupitar. But you don't get that HM until after 16 badges, so I just go in for a regular encounter anyway. And we get a Lunatone, just a 5% chance to find in here. It also gets a 20 base special attack boost and the Moonlight and Power Gem moves early. Damn. I name it Majora because it seems to have some massive power now. And with that, Route 42 is now open to us, where we can find a brand new item. Yup, that's right, StormSilver also introduces them, and this one's the Voltaic Ore. What's it for, you might ask? Well, we can evolve Jose fully into a Magnezone, something which is impossible to do in all of base Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Another fantastic quality of life improvement. There are also lots of cool encounter possibilities on this route, like Trapinch, Munchlax, and Hippopotas, but we get Sandslash. I'll take it, I guess. Now, with the fully evolved Magnezone in hand, I head all the way back to the Goldenrod department store in order to do the drawing corner. This way we can get one of the best moves for it, Flash Cannon, an 80 power special steel move. Wicked. And speaking of steel types, it turns out in Mahogany Town, none other than Riley is hanging out here from Sinnoh, and sure as ever he gives us an egg, our encounter in this town, which ends up being a Riolu. Amazing, especially since I got another Flash Cannon TM for when it evolves. And then, on Route 43, I can use a Repel to ensure that I only get an encounter in the water, as there's a 100% chance to get a Pokemon that I wanted way back near Azalea, Slowpoke. And beyond that, we get to the Lake of Rage, where apparently there are level 50 Magikarp I accidentally found while using Repel, as it only ensures that you don't encounter Pokemon lower than your party lead. Crazy. But there's something even crazier here, the Choice Specs item, one of the best items in the entire game. And it's locked behind the 6th badge now, if you'll notice, instead of the 4th as usual. And luckily, with a Magnezone on our side, the shiny red Gyarados doesn't pose much of a threat, as Jose can fry it with a base 140 special attack, Choice Specs boosted 95 power, 4 times super effective Thunderbolt. Alright, that might have been a bit overkill. While running around like a madman, our Riolu egg finally hatches, and I name her Becky. And she has a plus special attack and minus defense nature, pretty awesome for our purposes. And I made sure to level her up all the way to 34 before evolving her into a Lucario in order to get the fighting type priority special move Vacuum Wave. Epic. We then witness Lance Hyper Beam a man with his Dragonite, and I'm very curious how he didn't just disintegrate. Maybe he now has a permanent hole in his chest. And in the secret rocket base below, it turns out the Pokemon that copies Petrel's voice saying the password is no longer a Murkrow, it's a Chatot. Which actually makes a lot more sense, come to think of it. Shout out to my OGs who terrorized Wi-Fi battles with this thing way back in like 2007, as you could scream into your mic and have your Chatot repeat what you said upon battle entry as its cry. Pretty sure 80% of players would be cancelled nowadays. I heard some wild stuff on there. Toward the end, we have a battle alongside Lance against Rocket Executive Ariana, and this time she has a fully evolved team, which is pretty scary. And Lance has a Dragonair in this battle, not Dragonite as he usually has. Bad for us, but at least he doesn't have an illegal Pokemon anymore. And worse yet, once his Dragonair gets Brave Birded into the Netherworld, his Aerodactyl proceeds to hit stone edges like Shaq hits his free throws. That is to say, none at all. I guarantee he'd hit guaranteed ones if he was facing me though. Either way, Jose is fortunately perfect for this battle, resisting Hypno, Hodgecrow, and their own Magnezone, and being immune to their final Pokemon, Muck too. Beautiful. Now in preparation for the next gym, I bring back Arlene to the team and evolve her into a Wigglytuff. Not only does she get huge buffs in this game, but she's also modest after all, the perfect nature. Pfft, on the overworld, Arlene looks like that Pokemon Pocket card that has disturbed the entire internet. Alright, enough funny business, it's time for the Winter Soldier, Price, the Ice-type gym leader. I lead with Arlene against his hail-setting Abomasnow, and I was really hoping he'd miss Focus Blast, but nope. Slams us hard to a third before our berry, thanks to our HP and special defense investment, but this is like the only safe thing I had as I taught her 4 times super effective Flamethrower to get the KO and the level up. Then, as expected, in comes Mamoswine. And I was certain we'd bait the superpower here as it would do the most damage on us by far, but he went for Earthquake. Oh no, why? My entire plan is shot as that does a huge amount on Janet in combination with the hail instead of the resisted move he should have gone for. Our berry does help, but with our current party, I have nothing I can safely switch in. That last one did 78 HP damage, so we should survive and KO it as he outspeeds and goes for another, but bam, a critical hit. 2 insanely unlucky things in a row as Janet goes down. No, my jacked frog is dead. My only real choice here is now to go in with Milton, as a Surf gets the 1-hit KO on him with the help of the Choice Specs. This brings in this Frostlass, which we can't 1-hit KO, so I go into Jose to tank the resisted Shadow Ball. He then hits us with a priority Ice Shard before a Flash Cannon does the job from there. After the hail hits us, he then sends in Glalie, and knowing we'll outspeed, I can immediately hit the Stab super effective Flash Cannon to down it as well. In comes Dugong next, and Surf hits us to just 26 HP before our berry, then a Thunderbolt also gets the 1-hit KO. Jose is going absolutely off in this battle. He didn't like what happened to his girlfriend Janet, of course. His final Pokemon is then Lapras, and my calcs tell me a Thunderbolt won't KO here actually, so I switch into Hit Knee as he goes for Perish Song. Interesting. With us having Thick Fat and his best move being Blizzard, I know we can tank a couple, so I go for Body Slam twice trying to get the paralysis. All we need is no crit here, and he doesn't get one, so after the hail we end up in the red. Then I can merely switch into Becky to tank a final resisted Blizzard, and with his Perish song count now at 0, he technically takes himself down to win us the battle and our 7th badge. Apart from that Janet loss due to his weird move selection, that went relatively smoothly. There are a lot of things that could have gone worse. Rest in peace to our stunningly beautiful frog princess. You'll be missed. Oh, Mom, would you leave me alone? I'm in my criminal phase and trying to show off to my viewers. You calling does not help, unless you plan to bail me out. I then assemble a team to start taking on the Goldenrod radio tower, starting with Petrol disguised as the president. I lead with Brett against his Raticate. Thankfully, he missed his first double edge, which, come to think of it, might have done a ton of damage despite being resisted, as even after we use bulk up, it gets a crit to below half. Goodness gracious, that increased attack plus hustle is insane. Combined with his recoil damage, our +1 attack Gyro Ball then slams him for the KO though. In comes Tangrowth now, and my oh my is this ever a more challenging battle than his usual coughing and wheezing filled team. As predicting the Earthquake, I go into Charlie for immunity, then stab super effective Air Slash him into oblivion thanks to his lower special defense. Toxicroak then used Protect as I switched back into Brett. I was expecting Stone Edge, but knowing he'll use Cross Chop, I now go into Milton to resist it. Then blast him with a 4x damage Psychic one-hit KO. Skuntank then comes in, a massive threat for Milton, so I go into Becky to tank the resisted Crunch. I then go for 2 Flash Cannons to take him down, as Crunch is in fact the only attacking move aside from Explosion that can affect us. We're immune to everything else. Hypno then comes out, and with Becky having Crunch, I stay in, and it does over half. Then he hits a Psychic, and sheesh, that was close. We had to dodge a crit there, but it opens up room for the KO with us on just 12 HP. Whew. His final Pokemon is his classic Weezing, and with Sludge Bomb being the only major threat, I go into Milton, but he goes for Destiny Bond. So I make the switch back into Becky, knowing he can't hurt her. Then, hoping he protects this time, I go back into Milton, and the plan works so we can freely unload a Psychic to decimate that pile of waste. What? He is. I'm not being rude. After quickly evolving Hannah the Slowpoke and rolling the Electrode we got from the Rocket Hideout, it's time to go to the Goldenrod Underground for our penultimate battle with our rival, Silver, and one that I'm quite scared about as his coverage is looking insane. He leads with his Honchkrow, and Starmie with Choice Specs Thunderbolt barely doesn't KO on a Sliver. What? My calcs were wrong it seems, as he gets a Toxic off before we can land another to knock him out. Ugh. Electabuzz then comes in, and that's not at all what I was predicting. It was supposed to be Gengar with Thunder having more power. Oh well, as a Body Switch has us immune to it, then Focus Blast hits us for less than half before we can Earth Power that thing, but again, it barely doesn't KO. What is actually happening? He then hits a second consecutive Focus Blast, wish I could have that luck, and Bonnie survives in the red before her berry, unleashing another to finally get rid of that pesky thing. Of course, his Savage Feraligatr then comes in as an answer, and I have a new answer of my own. Roland, tanking Crunch well, and then I go for Charge Beam, and we get the special attack raise. Yes, as we'll now have enough power with the... Oh no, I forgot to teach Thunderbolt. I even went through the effort of getting it from the game corner right before. I was so busy with my plan that the one crux of it I forgot to do. As another waterfall hits, and we survive on just 4 HP on a Sliver. Goodness gracious. Another Charge Beam then hits, and he survives on like 3 HP. Roland then gets annihilated. Damn, and silly me, I thought I'd do a great job making Electrode look viable. He would have been if I had taught him the damn move I wanted to. Preparation is key, but I've noticed in Rom Hack sometimes you can be over-focused on one aspect of the preparation and forget another. 2 things have now gone completely sideways, but at least I can bring in Milton to outspeed and KO his starter. Then comes his Gengar, a speedy and powerful Mon, but I do have one counter. Hitney, who blocks the Shadow Ball with immunity, and then we both miss our attacks on the next turn. Well, that's awkward. But then he hits the Hypnosis on the next, but I knew he'd have to go for that, so I attached a Lumberry, meaning we can now wake up and smash it with a super effective Zen Headbutt for 2/3. Then he puts us to sleep again. Man, his accuracy luck is wild. Thunder is his best attack now, which actually does do over half, but Hitney wakes up, but then misses the crucial attack. What is my life? I legit have nothing I can send in now. Thunder and or Shadow Ball on anything we have will destroy, especially with the outspeeding for a second attack. So I stay in, and he went for Giga Drain. Damn, had I only known he'd do that, but he gets the KO and it gives him recovery. Hitney was one of my favorites and she put in good work for us. This one hurts. Well, my only choice now is the Milton Psychic Outspeed to KO, but then in comes another powerhouse, Alakazam. However, knowing he'll try an Energy Ball, I could get Brett in to tank it, but he paralyzed us on the next turn. But our Lumberry heals us and then Gyro Ball slams him over half before... oh, he withdrew. Wasn't expecting that as Magmar eats the next one up. Fortunately, we have a great counter here, our newly caught and evolved Hannah, who tanks 2 flamethrowers with ease and lands the Surf one-hit KO from there. Beauty. Alakazam is now his only remaining Mon, and again, I know the Energy Ball is on its way, so a Brett switch has us tank a crit, followed by a Shockwave to take him down with the final Gyro Ball. Man oh man, 2 losses is a rough battle, but I mean, we always knew it was going to be a challenging one. Rest in peace, Roland and Hitney. May your roundness serve you ever well in the afterlife. Further up the tower, we're challenged by Executive Proton, who leads with... oh.
It's a terrible day for rain.
What do you mean? It's not raining.
Yes, it is.
Of course, he just has to taunt me. Well, for that, good sir, you get an Earthquake to the face. Ooh, and a crit at that. He then brings in his Crobat, and Brett is a great counter, resisting 2 Brave Birds and tagging him with an extra Sensory, which gets a crit to KO. Nice. In comes a big threat for Brett, a Brett threat, if you will. Camrupt, and I go into Hannah to tank Earth Power fairly well, and then he preemptively switches into Cacturn. Yikes, not good for Hannah at all, so I switch into Bonnie, our own Camrupt, and Needle Arm does just less than half. Goodness gracious, that was powerful. I don't want to risk a high roll, so I instead go into Connie for the Intimidate, as he goes for Focus Blast instead. Okay then, as I ultimately decide to go back into Alberto predicting the Thunder Punch, and it works. He then Sucker Punches us on the next turn before I just go for Earthquake despite being resisted, as I know we can 2-hit KO from this range, but he switches again into Wheezing to catch me with Levitate. Damn, this AI is smart. Feels like I'm facing a competitive battler here. Wheezing merely burns Starmie upon entry though, so we can obliterate it with a Psychic from there. In comes his pesky Cacturn again, never thought one of these would be so much trouble. So I switch into Alberto again to tank Needle Arm, followed by another hit Focus Blast, and we survive on just 25 HP in the red before our berry, before finally taking that abomination down. His Camrupt then comes back out, and I realize, since we outspeed, not often a Torterra does that, a stab super effective Earthquake can get the one-hit KO. Beautiful. His final Pokemon is then a wickedly fast and powerful Tauros, but Connie can come in and intimidate it before a -1 takedown still does a fair amount, to be honest. Knowing he'll use it again, I go into Brett to tank another, get the berry recovery, and then bait the Earthquake so I can freely get another Intimidate with Connie's immunity. Repeating this process over, I can get him to super low attack to the point that he can only do 30 damage on us, barring a crit. Then, after Connie's berry, we can slam him with an Aqua Tail, which barely doesn't KO on a Sliver, and then he Hyper Potions. Ugh. But then, Connie decides she's had enough of this and gets a crit bite, followed by a crit Aqua Tail to seal the deal. You tell him, you giant water dragon snake thing. I love you. The penultimate Goldenrod Radio Tower enemy is then Executive Ariana, the final time we'll have to face her. It took a lot of strategizing to try and come up with a plan for her, but I think I've got a reasonable one. She leads with a Jinx, and I get Colin the Typhlosion out there to instantly incinerate her with a flamethrower to start it off. She then sends in an insanely powerful Pokemon in response though, a Milotic. This thing is a monster, but we have one singular answer, Jose, who takes Surf slightly over half thanks to some special defense investment, and is immune to her Toxic after all. Then she outspeeds on the next turn, but we dodge the crit and survive on the red and land a Choice Specs boosted Thunderbolt, the only way we could have conceivably one-hit KO'd that huge threat. In comes Vileplume next, and it's a switch back to Colin to take a Drain Punch of all things before obliterating it as well. Now comes her Arbok, and I go into Connie to intimidate it before her Earthquake doesn't work. With her having Thunderfang though, keeping Gyarados out there is dangerous, but I know even Milton can tank one, then respawn with the outspeed Psychic KO thanks to pushing level 47 and maximizing her special attack EVs. No more taking chances. I had a Lumberry on Milton just in case we got paralyzed from Thunderfang too, so that was a pretty safe play. Then comes Honchkrow, and my calcs tell me a Thunderbolt won't KO, so I go into Connie to Intimidate before Brave Bird does a bit more than a third. I then peg her with Ice Fang, which does a good amount before her berry, then she paralyzes us with Thunder Wave out of nowhere. We're in a risky position, so I decide to swap into Becky to tank another neutral -1 Brave Bird, and man, that still did some damage, bringing Becky into the red already. And the problem is, she also knows Sucker Punch, so I don't think this is gonna work. I decide Brett is our best option, tanking 2 Brave Birds with ease, and Gyro Ball brings her to just a sliver before she then Hyper Potions. Oh, this thing just won't die. She then did try to paralyze us, but I have a Lumberry on Brett, so the two of them duke it out hit for hit, and we have one more attack to go, but then she goes for Priority Sucker Punch and gets a crit to bypass Intimidate and do just enough to take Brett down. You have got to be kidding me. This thing doesn't even have Super Luck either. Fortunately, Becky can at least come in and out-prioritize her with the Vacuum Wave at least. Her final Pokemon is then Perugly, for which I go into our paralyzed Connie for Intimidate, tank a Body Slam before our Berry, and then land a couple Aqua Tails through Paralysis to clutch the victory. Man, Brett was such a big defensive part of our roster, that one's gonna hurt logistically just as much as it does emotionally. With that win under our belt, it's time for what is usually the final rocket battle, Executive Archer. And what a savage-looking team he has in this game. It took me a while to figure out exactly how to approach it, but in the end I decide to lead with Becky against his base 115 attack Zangoose to immediately outspeed and destroy it with a 120 power close combat, at the cost of a defense drop though. As expected, this then brings in Machamp, and this is one of those crazy things about these Rom Hacks. He has insane coverage, with pretty much the best fighting, dark, rock, and ground moves out there, and 2 of them with high crit ratios, so Intimidate isn't really worth it. With that said, I know he'll go for a fighting one against Lucario, so I switch into Milton, who only with the choice specs attached has enough power to down that thing with a 90 power stab super effective Psychic. Machamp's 90 HP and 85 special defense tends to shock a lot of people. In comes a big threat next, Drapion, who also has insane coverage. So I go into Alberto, and naturally he gets a crit on Crunch. Fortunately, it was less than half though, as another brings us low before our berry. Then I have Alberto unleash with a stab 100 power super effective Earthquake with his base 109 attack, but it's not enough, only bringing him to the red. No way. Well, I pretty much have to dodge a crit here, but oh, he preemptively switched into Gyarados for immunity. Wowza. Our only answer here is going to be Milton, although he does end up in the air for a bounce at this point, so I just take the chance to use a recover so we're at full health before getting hit to half. Then I use it again to near full, before switching due to choice specs into our own Gyarados, as it was this sequence that made me realize that Intimidate does work on Pokemon that are in the air. A pretty cool mechanic, although he does get the paralysis from bounce. Not good, but now I can repeat the Milton strat, except this time going for Thunderbolt, as he missed his bounce, so we nail him thanks to the choice specs and are at near full health. Wonderful. Drapion then comes back out, and it turns out that boost actually gives us enough power to knock him down from this range too. Then comes Scizor, a big threat for Milton, but definitely not a big threat for the Dawn Charizard. Tanking X-Scissor no problem and eviscerating him with a flamethrower. His final Pokemon is then an Intimidate Houndoom, and at this point I know I need some damage on him. So I hit a wing attack for surprisingly little before he sets up the sun. Uh-oh. Maybe that was a mistake. Regardless, knowing we'll need the range with the sun up now, I hit him again before getting smashed to a third by a sun-boosted Fire Blast. Well, there's only one option from here. Milton, who I know can tank a Fire Blast. What? Dark Pulse? What do you mean? No way, why did he switch his moves? How did he know? Milton goes down. I can't believe it. Starmie is one of the absolute best Pokemon in the game, and this man read our switch like a children's book. Well, at least from there I can send in Howie to clean up with Stab Silk Scarf and Technician boosted double hit for the KO and the win. Cleaning up Team Rocket once and for all. Or so I thought. As it turns out, in this game, the Team Rocket leader Giovanni shows up out of nowhere and challenges you to a battle. No chance to switch anything at all. Not only did I have no idea about this, but also I didn't prepare our team properly at all. Fortunately, he does lead with his trusty Persian from the anime, and I just so happened to have Becky out in front for the previous battle. And because of the fake out flinch, our steadfast ability activates to raise our speed, allowing us to close combat it to death on the next turn. Actually a pretty good start. But then in comes a monster fully evolved Rhyperior of all things. Uh-oh. Guess that speed boost was for nothing, as not even close combat would take this thing down. I go into Gyarados for Intimidate, knowing he'll go for a ground move, and oh, he went for Hammer Arm, okay, before a 4-time super effective Aqua Tail smashes him and doesn't quite KO somehow on the red, but oh man, he misses Stone Edge, and we hit our next one. That might have just saved us, I'm not gonna lie. He then gives us a taste of our own medicine with his Intimidate Tauros, for which I go into Becky again, knowing Stone Edge was on its way. Then being able to bait the Earthquake so I can Intimidate with a switch back into Connie. I do this again, and he gets a crit on Connie this time, which is not good. I know we need Gyarados to be near full health for what's to come. And nothing else can come in at this point, so I decide to stay in and just go for Priority Vacuum Wave. And we get a crit, and he didn't use Earthquake, Double Edge instead, and Becky survives somehow on just 4 HP on a sliver. What in the world? But the recoil barely doesn't KO him on a sliver too. Why? But here, I know he'll heal, so I switch to close combat, hoping for the KO, and he barely survives on a sliver again. But we do have Priority Vacuum Wave after all, finally downing that troublesome bull. I can't believe Becky survived that. But then, in comes Nidoking, an absolute terror for our team. With utterly ridiculous coverage. I realize he has an equal chance of using any of his moves since they'll all KO. And they could be dangerous for any Pokemon we switch in, so I go for Flash Cannon for a third, then Becky gets taken down by Ice Beam. Good thing I didn't send in Alberto. From here, I go for Dawn with the neutral flamethrower to the red, not quite the KO, then Thunderbolt smashes us to a quarter. But one more does the trick. Then in comes his Kangaskhan, quite the menace, especially with Sucker Punch. I figured the best option is Connie for Intimidate, as a -1 Double Edge still does a good amount of damage on us. Sheesh. With limited choices remaining, I go into Howie, taking him below half with Double Hit. Then Howie actually tanks Double Edge quite well thanks to that Intimidate, so a Headbutt for better accuracy finishes him from there. Then in comes his final Pokemon, Nidoqueen. I have never seen such a team of beastly Pokemon before, to be honest, but I switch into Connie right away, but it gets a Toxic off on us and then uses Protect. Great, Toxic stall. We then hit an Aqua Tail for 3/4, then Ice Beam plus Poison bring us quite low. At this point, a miss would be devastating, and knowing he'll likely try protecting again, I risk the switch into Howie, and it works. So after another protect, we can outspeed and slam that thing with a headbutt to finish the final rocket battle. For real this time. Man, Howie's speed and reasonable power actually saved us there.
Christian, this Shaq, I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game and how you travel.
Man, you're a casual.
That Team Rocket gauntlet was wild. Honestly, it was so incredibly fun. Surprises everywhere, challenging battles. I think that was one of the hardest segments of a Pokemon game I've ever played. Right up there with Monotype Hardcore Nuzlocke Elite 4 segments, to be honest. After picking up a Sunny Daytium from a girl on the floor below as a thanks for saving the city, we then have to do the unthinkable. Get rid of both Becky and Milton. Two Pokemon I thought would be absolutely crucial if we're to succeed at this challenge, but I guess we'll have to see. Heading back to get an actual encounter from the Lake of Rage, and after trying to fish on the grass accidentally, I realized there's an encounter here I didn't know about only in this Rom Hack, Feebas. Due to there being only Magikarp in here otherwise, that means we can guarantee it. And at just a 5% chance, I was very surprised to find one as my very first encounter. Didn't even need to activate Species Clause technically. Let's go. I also caught it in a Heal Ball, quite fitting for its evolution, and I name her Judith. She has a plus defense and minus special attack nature, half good and half terrible, but oh well. While trying to raise its beauty, I head back to Goldenrod to the hairdresser, and let me just say, seeing a Feebas getting a haircut would be quite something indeed. And after a time-intensive glow-up, Judith eventually evolves into a gorgeous Milotic, who I'm hoping will serve us well as sort of a combined replacement for Bronzong and Starmie. With the west of Mahogany Town now open to us, we can pick up some new encounters, including a Nuzleaf on Route 44 that I named Flora, and fun fact, my initial channel mascot on this channel was a Shiftry, as I was hoping he'd get a Mega for Oras, and my other option was a Camrupt, who I ultimately decided against, who did get a Mega. Just my luck. With that said, we do have some great luck in the ice path as I ended up getting the encounter that I really wanted, Swinub. Incredible. Route 45 also has some really cool encounters, including a 10% chance for Gligar, and although we didn't get it, I can't complain about Vibrava. One of my fave designs in the franchise, and honestly I'm usually a bigger fan of fully evolved Pokemon than non-fully evolved Pokemon, but this thing is just stellar. And Flygon got his offensive prowess boosted in this game too. But more treasures await as the Route 45 entrance to the Dark Cave has the Reaper Cloth available for Dusclops. And I can use the move reminder to reteach Arthur the Swinub Ancient Power, which has him fully evolve into a Mamoswine. And in this game, he gets a new ability, Thick Fat, completely eliminating his usual fire weakness. Now that's epic. Well, it's time for the 8th and final gym leader, Claire the Dragon Expert. Now Claire is normally quite a tough challenge in the vanilla games, but in this one her team is ramped up to the maximum. Against her lead Dragonair, I go in with our new Arthur, and beyond maximizing his attack EVs, I also attached the zoom lens on him just to avoid any unlucky Ice Fang misses, allowing us to one-hit KO it instantly. Then comes her Gyarados, too big of a threat for Arthur to handle, but I go into Jose. She does go for Dragon Dance immediately, terrifying as she now outspeeds with a +1 4x super effective Earthquake, but I had attached a Focus Sash from our mom's savings, meaning Jose can clutch it out on 1 HP and unload with a Thunderbolt to fry that thing. Amazing. But then in comes another gigantic threat, a Salamence of all things. However, I brought along a new friend, Kirk, whose Thick Fat has us eat up even a Fire Blast. Kirk's sheer bulk then allows him to tank even a fully powered Draco Meteor too, and her White Herb restores her special attack stat as our Citrus Berry helps our side out, then a 4x super effective Ice Beam freezes her right out of the sky. So far so good, the plan is working. In comes her second Dragonair as I switch back into Arthur to tank the Outrage before performing Dragonair cleanup on this one too. Her penultimate Pokemon is then her signature Kingdra, an absolute terror to behold, with sniper and insane stab moves like Hydro Pump and Dragon Pulse. But we do finally have an answer for it, our new Judith, who eats up Hydro Pump amazingly well all things considered. These two ridiculously bulky water types then duke it out as we peg her with Ice Beam repeatedly, although her confusing us with Swagger was not helpful at all. Then her Dragon Pulses did quite a lot too. I did get the recover off on the next turn to full health in combination with our berry, but then she got a sniper boosted crit on the next turn to nearly take us out in one hit. Damn it, my whole plan is foiled. Unbelievable. I have no choice as I have to gamble for the recover here, and we get it as Dragon Pulse then hits us below half again, but then we snap through confusion on the next turn too to get nearly back to full health. A miracle. Another few turns of a back and forth with confusion and we end up with her around half health as Judith is now low too. Too low in fact. In the end I decide to go into Howie here, who tanks Dragon Pulse on less than half, and then I'm hoping we have the range with double hit, but her berry activates midway through the attack. Oh no, I had hoped it would activate after both of them, such a weird mechanic, as then Blizzard lands and takes Howie down. His sacrifice does allow us to take down one of her biggest threats safely though. Her final Pokemon is then Altaria, who stood no chance in the face of Arthur's priority Ice Shard to ensure the outspeed and the 4x super effective stab KO for our 8th and final badge. A great performance by the team, some unlucky moments for sure, and losing Howie is a sad thing, as with Technician and his wicked speed, he was actually proving to be far more helpful than anticipated. In the Dragon's Den, thanks to Species Clause, we could then guarantee a Dratini as our encounter, a stellar pickup, before then, sorry for my giant woolly mammoth being in the way, Claire, although I guess you're used to that after our battle. Heading back to New Barktown where it all started, I was very scared that Lyra was going to battle me as she was just standing there menacingly with her Azumarill, but it turns out she's just jealous that the Kimono girls want me. Speaking of which, heading back to Eckertique, it turns out they want to battle consecutively, with no chance to heal or change our party order between battles. Even crazier is that it turns out Drayano added 2 additional Kimono girls compared to the original games, which is perfect as now they have all 7 evolutions that existed at this point. Pretty darn cool. What's also cool is that we do have a good answer for them. Jose with the choice specs attached, leading off against the first one's Umbreon, resisting dark moves and being immune to toxic. Confuse Ray was the only risk here, but after hitting the first, she indeed went for Dark Pulse, so another could fry Umbreon from there. The second Kimono girl's Espeon did fire off a Psychic, but with all her moves being resisted, it was her best option, and a single T-Bolt had enough power to get the one-hit KO. Next was one of the new Kimono girls with a Leafeon, such a cool touch, and I immediately make the switch into Barbara as she Swords Dances. I figured a Choice Banded Fly would do enough, but she Swords Dances again, and then we just missed the KO in the red. Uh-oh. Here comes a +4 Leaf Blade, but with it being quad resisted, not even a crit would have done the job. But we have to hit this second fly as everything on our team would go down to a +4 Leaf Blade from here, and we do. Whew. Crisis averted even through synthesis recovery. The second new Kimono girl was up next with her Glaceon, which straight up got obliterated by Choice Spec's Flash Cannon. This is the one benefit we have with consecutive battles. We can still swap moves between them, so Choice Specs is stellar here. Flareon is then a big threat for Jose, so I go into Judith, who can tank all of her moves with ease. Although Sunny Day was a bit tedious, weakening our attack power and boosting Flareon's, but we made it through safely thanks to our berry. The Jolteon battle was then accomplished by switching Arthur for electric immunity, and then, well, she went for double team. And even with the stupid zoom lens on Arthur, he kept missing repeatedly, to the point that we were within crit range suddenly, but my pride would not allow my big mammoth to back down. And we hit the Earthquake finally. Goodness me. The final Vaporeon trainer surprised me as it turns out she has a jolly nature. So she outsped with a massive power Hydro Pump which nearly took Jose out, but then got decimated by a single Thunderbolt to seal the deal. Not too bad all things considered, especially given that there were 2 more battles than usual. Making our way through the Whirl Islands, we can pick up a new encounter, which ends up being a Spheal I named Rita, with Walrein being one of my favorite Pokemon ever, so I was thrilled about this pickup. In the depths of the island stands, or floats, the legendary Pokemon Lugia, Guardian of the Seas and Bringer of Storms. Too bad its ultimate weakness is a little magnety boy, tanking a punishment, okay, before frying it out of the sky. This isn't going to cause some sort of imbalance that destroys the Johto region, is it? Well, if it does happen, might as well save some Pokemon beforehand, as we have a triple combo of encounters to the east of New Barktown which has been largely inaccessible until now. In the Tojo Falls, we pick up a Goldeen I name Irving. On Route 27, we find a Ponyta that I name Chester. And ignore me using my Nuzlocke app and thinking Galarian Ponyta was available here. Usually it only shows what Pokemon are available in each section of the game, but if you actually type something in, it defaults to anything with your search query. Whoops. Then finally, on Route 26, we find a Dodrio, one of the best flying types out there, which I named Trianthony. Get it? With that, it's time to make our way through Victory Road, where some goodies await, the first being the amazing Earthquake TM. And I traveled all the way to the 3rd floor using repels so that I might have gotten a chance for the 2 rare 5% encounters available here, Metang, and we got the second one, no way, a Gabite. Guess that Earthquake TM is really gonna come in handy. And we caught it on the first ball too. Nice. And what do you know, Drayano programmed a Nurse Joy in here to help heal ya. Isn't that nice? But ahead of what's to come, I went back to our PC anyway though. First to grab Flora and fully evolve her into a Shiftry with a Leaf Stone. And it turns out Amy our Gabite has none other than an adamant nature. So I hurriedly evolve her into a Garchomp right away. Let's go. At the end of Victory Road stands our last pre-league challenge, our rival Silver, with a fully evolved and quite insane looking team. He leads with his Honchkrow, for which Jose would be fantastic, but he's got Heat Wave on the damn thing. So I go with Thick Fat Arthur, who outspeeds and destroys it with one Ice Fang. Next is Magmortar, and although the threat is real here, Arthur does not give a solitary crap and annihilates it with the same move. But then in comes his starter Feraligatr, this time with Earthquake, so again Jose would not have been viable. But we have one other option here. Our newly evolved Flora, who I know can tank a waterfall, use Fake Out, and then outspeed to have the range with or so I thought, as he survives on a sliver and slams us with Ice Fang, but Flora tanks it out on low health to get the KO with another one. Very unfortunate we got tagged by that, as Flora was going to counter 2 of his other Pokemon as I had planned. Oh well, guess we'll have to improvise as another big threat, Electivire, comes in. Knowing he'll Ice Punch, I switch into Arthur, tanking it quite well and letting off another Earthquake for sheer destruction. But now he's left with 2 giant threats, the first being Alakazam with Energy Ball and Focus Blast. Yikes. It's a bit risky due to Psychic, but I'm quite confident he'll go for the latter, so I go into Barbara, and he indeed goes for Focus Blast, but misses anyway. Nice. Now Barbara is one of the few things in the game that can outspeed him, so a Choice Banded Fly does the trick. His final Pokemon is then Gengar, another big threat with Thunderbolt, so I go into Amy to play it safe, catching the immunity and outspeeding with a massive power super effective Crunch to win the battle. That turned out pretty nicely. A good warm-up for what's to come. And what's to come is our greatest challenge yet, the Indigo Plateau Pokemon League. After all the trials and tribulations we've endured, we've arrived at our final destination. No, hopefully not that kind. Now at this point we have quite the roster to choose our final team from, more than a box worth of Pokemon, but ultimately after 2 hours straight of insane theory crafting, one of my longest and most intensive planning sessions ever, I decide upon this team, with the level cap now at 55. It looks like a weird team, not what you might expect, but it's the best I could come up with for these insane upgraded E4 teams. It's time to go for it. The first member of the Elite Four is Will, and Will is like a bounty bar. Completely forgettable, but actually pretty good when you taste it. Alright, who wrote this? He leads with a Jinx, and I go in with Jose to start. Unfortunately, I forgot that he had Lovely Kiss after all of my planning. Oh boy. And with no real choice, I stay in on the next turn, and he hits Focus Blast, a 75% and a 70 accuracy move consecutively. Ugh. At least we do wake up and nail her with Flash Cannon, after which his Slowbro then comes in. Now that we pass through the sleep, things can go a bit smoother, and Slowbro gets one-shot by Thunderbolt. Then his incoming Lunatone and Solrock, which made many team options defunct by the way, suffer the same fate to a Flash Cannon each, with the Iron Plate helping us get the range. Jose is on a tear. But it has to end here unfortunately, as his incoming Xatu is faster than us, and I did not anticipate having any damage at this point. I have to switch, so I go into Martina, our Golduck from our super early game Route 31 encounter. What a cool thing to see her back in action. She tanks the incoming Psychic on just below half, but thankfully her timid nature helps us outspeed, and are you kidding me? I forgot to teach the Ice Beam TM too, because I wasn't expecting on using it this battle, despite making sure to get the TM. Again, planning is so tough for these runs. I at least go for Disable to cancel out her Psychic, and then switch into Amy, anticipating the Thunder Wave, and it works brilliantly, as we can hit her hard to the red with Crunch, get tagged by an Air Cutter, then land another for the KO. Will's final Pokemon is then a Gardevoir, but I know its super frail physical defense won't allow it to survive an Adamant Garchomp's muscle band boosted Earthquake, so bye-bye! Okay, first Elite Four battle was a disaster. I'm going to ensure that we're actually prepared from here on out. Oh, and it turns out Kadabra teleports you between the rooms in this version, and it looks like you might be able to choose the order that you face them in too? Now that's cool. The second Elite Four member is Koga, the former gym leader and Poison-type master. While planning for this battle, I was like, oh, a powerful and speedy Psychic type would sweep through his whole team easily. If only I had one. Lunatone would have been great, but I realized Venomoth is a bug and Psychic type in this game, not poison, and it has a base 115 special attack with super effective Stab Bug Buzz. Yeah, right. So I resorted to our good old Raticate from our Route 39 encounter, Gordon, who I taught Return, a 102 power stab move at max friendship, with the Hustle Boost 2, and the Choice Band, and attack and speed based stat boosts in this game, making him an unreal threat. We do land the return on Venomoth, however don't forget we only have 80% accuracy due to Hustle, but he lands another one on Toxicroak, which as hoped was going for a fighting move due to super effectiveness instead of priority Sucker Punch. I kid you not, Gordon then goes on a complete rampage, decimating each and every one of Koga's Pokemon, even outspeeding Crobat, which otherwise would have clobbered us with Brave Bird, just barely thanks to maximizing his speed EVs. An absolute legend, as there was only a 26% chance he'd hit all 6 attacks. I really struggled to find an answer to his team while planning, but my oh my did Gordon ever pull through. The answer should have been obvious. The third Elite Four member is Bruno, the fighting type expert with an insanely buffed up team that, again, a speedy psychic type would have been incredible for. Dodrio was definitely an option here, but I decided to take Amy along with us instead, knowing she'd ultimately be better for what's to come after this. And knowing Bruno's Hitmontop would likely go for Sucker Punch, I taught Amy Swords Dance. And it works, as despite his Intimidate we get it off freely, so now we're at +1. And here's the key. We don't currently have enough power to one-shot everything on his team, but we can get Hitmontop, and then I knew it would be Hitmonchan next since he has Ice Punch. And I attached the Metronome item on Amy so each successive Earthquake hit becomes more powerful. So by the time we get to the bulkier threats like Hariyama that would have survived, we have enough power to pull another clean sweep. Hello, Lucario. We're now at +6.
No, wait.
Go, Amy, go. A complete savage if there ever was one. The fourth and final Elite Four member is Karen, the Dark-type expert and a fan favorite. Her team was incredibly difficult to plan for, with her leading with an Intimidate Mightyena now with Fire Fang, Attract, and Sucker Punch. A menace, plus she's got really powerful other Pokemon too. But I came up with a strategy I was quite proud of. You see, I lead with Flora, pretty much the only reason why I brought her instead of Arthur the Mamoswine, as she might take Thick Fat into account in her calcs anyway. She takes the Intimidate, and her only purpose is to bait Fire Fang, as she's female so I know Karen won't go for Attract here. This allows me to safely switch into Colin the Typhlosion, and the guaranteed Fire Fang activates his Flash Fire ability, raising the power of his fire moves. With that combined with the Choice Specs and Flamethrower, we can now eviscerate her first 4 Pokemon, with thankfully neither Honchkrow nor Absol going for Sucker Punch, as I knew they'd likely want to go for Thunder Wave to try and cancel out the speed differential. Amazing, as even her bulky Spiritomb goes down to 1 too. Now that's some power. Her Umbreon did barely survive one and started double teaming, but Colin pulled through even despite her full restoring and landed 2 more to score the knockout. Her final Pokemon is then an Intimidate Houndoom, and Colin's not affected by it, and thank goodness it didn't have Flash Fire, but we are forced to go for the same attack due to Choice Specs. Not quite getting the KO before her berry, but I knew we could survive even a crit Dark Pulse, with no threat of flinch since we outspeed, so she just nasty plots and we land another to win the battle. What a wicked performance! Well, it's time. After loading up with our remaining rare candies for the 60 level cap, the final battle is upon us, the champion of both the Kanto and Johto regions, Lance the Dragon Master. Lance is always a tough cookie, but with his StormSilver team, man, I have no words. Just sheer power, setup opportunities, and coverage everywhere. But it's time to see if my gambit pays off. I lead with Jose against his Gyarados to take Intimidate, and it looks dangerous with him having Earthquake, but with the speed investment I've put in, I know we can outspeed and use the Magnet Rise move. Not too often one sees that, as it makes us immune, and then we can outspeed with the 4x super effective Thunderbolt. Wicked. In comes his Garchomp next, which I know has Earthquake, and we're fine against that, but Fire Fang is still a big threat. So, I activate my trump card. I switch in Martina to resist it, and then, with our timid nature and max speed and special attack investment, and Ice Beam actually taught to her this time, we can 4x super effective Ice Beam his Garchomp, 2 Dragonites in a row, and then outspeed even Aerodactyl of all things with the Mystic Water boosted Stab super effective Surf to get the KO on it too. Unbelievable! It's already his final Pokemon, and it is a doozy, Charizard. I know that Surf will not get the range, so I taught Hydro Pump for just this reason. To win the game, we just need to hit it despite 80% accuracy, and we do. Martina hit the Hydro. Charizard is downed and the champion is defeated at the hands of none other than a Golduck. Unreal. That's right, Hit the Hydro merch is officially in stock. If you enjoy these kinds of large-scale videos, make sure to go grab yourself some merch to help support the cost of them. I can't believe we've become the champion in StormSilver. What a cool team too. But the challenge is not over yet. The biggest is yet to come. Meeting Oak in the Olivine City Harbor, he gives us the lock capsule instead of the national dex, and I have no idea what that does. Maybe those of you familiar with this Rom Hack can help you out here. But for now, we have access to the SS title ship, bringing us to the Kanto region. That's right, let the flood of nostalgia overwhelm you as we arrive in Vermilion City. And our very first encounter in Kanto ends up being a pretty good one, a Kadabra, which is really sick. It's gonna be wicked to store up some new great encounters with all these areas opened up to us now. And as it turns out, Lieutenant Surge is apparently absent from his gym? That's new. It turns out the game kind of forces you to face the gyms in the original order, which I actually kinda like. Now, although Drayano put amazing effort into making the Kanto gym leaders more challenging as well, the game still has that element where they're much easier to handle than the Johto gym leaders, because at this point you pretty much have unlimited capacity for EV training, access to almost any item, and a giant roster of Pokemon to work with. Brock, for example, is much tougher with a better party and Pokemon with the Sturdy plus Explosion combo. Quite nasty, but by bringing Alberto back, I can let him shine once again by using Leech Seed, thereby being able to break Sturdy without triggering them using Explosion at low health, then Giga Draining to gain tons of health back. I did lose him to a Vigoroth that used Counter on a random trainer shortly thereafter though, so whoops. Erica is another good example where I could assemble pretty much an entire team perfectly designed to counter her. And it also offered me an opportunity to finally make use of Trianthony with the Choice Band Drill Peck sweeping through everything but her Tangrowth. Whereas her team might pose a problem if we had limited encounters, such as not having something to outspeed Jumpluff, which could put us to sleep and use Sunny Day to activate Chlorophyll to make half her team faster than us. At this point, we fortunately did have something that outsped that base of 110 speed monster. Don't underestimate the Pluff. And among the many cool changes in the Kanto region is the fact that the Celadon Game Corner now offers a prize Pokemon I've been chasing after all game. Metang, which is guaranteed if we use it as our encounter here. Sweet. And for Sabrina's gym, I brought back our old Katrina the Dusclops to evolve her using the Reaper Cloth, but we now have something even better, as we could finally access the Bell Tower by getting the Rainbow Wing in Pewter City. Those lucky Sacred Gold players got this encounter opportunity much earlier, but I finally got another chase Pokemon, Ogden the Ghastly, which I promptly evolved, EV trained, and had him go absolutely nuts with the Choice Specs to sweep through all of Sabrina's powerhouse Psychic types with Shadow Ball. Even her Alakazam, which was a giant threat otherwise, speed and power to the maximum. After clearing through the gym leaders deathless apart from Alberto, we eventually arrive at our true final destination, the perilous Mount Silver, where we got our final encounter of the game, a derpy Quagsire. How fitting. We can also pick up the Expert Belt before adding Rickethy the Primeape I got on Route 9, and Dr. Smash the Metagross to our team, who's looking around restlessly for something. I can guess what it is. It's a fight. As emerging on the summit of Mount Silver, a lone trainer awaits us, the protagonist of the Kanto games, the former champion of the Indigo Plateau, and battle legend himself, Red. After planning as best I can for this monumental challenge, it's time to try and finish the fight. With our whole journey to this point flashing through in my mind, there's no way I'm giving up now. Red leads with his ace level 94 Light Ball Pikachu, and as much as I'd like to get rid of the hail with the different weather, I decide to leave it in favor of using the Stealth Rock TM that we got from this mountain on Amy, our lead, who then gets hit by Grass Knot and hail for a third. Now we can outspeed on the next turn to destroy him with a stab super effective Earthquake. As expected, this baits in his Blastoise since he has Blizzard, and I know just what to do. Switch in our old reliable Jose, tanking the resisted attack with ease and unleashing with a Choice Specs boosted Thunderbolt to one-hit KO that defensive monster. This then brings in a big threat for Jose, Charizard, but the Stealth Rocks being 4 times effective on it immediately bring it to half health, which is why they were so crucial. Knowing the fire move is coming, I go into Amy for the resistance, but he goes for Focus Blast and hits it. Oof, that did massive damage, but our berry helps us back up to half at least before hail. We can then outspeed though, being able to take it down from that range with Dragon Claw. Then in comes what is technically a new addition for these games, Espeon, and I love the decision to have this in here. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Red usually has a Lapras here, but in the original Gold and Silver, Espeon was his 6th team member, so this is dope to see, but hard to deal with. However, my calcs tell me we should outspeed and get just the range with Amy's Earthquake, and we do. That thing's Psychic would pack a wall up otherwise. Then comes another major threat, Venusaur, for which I switch into the Dawn himself, our own Charizard, who tanks Power Whip and Hail quite well before then responding with a massive power Jolly Flare Blitz. But what? He has an Akka Berry? Well, that's new. I didn't see that on his team preview as we take massive recoil damage too, but he misses his Sleep Powder. Okay, that might have saved the day as a couple flamethrowers do the job after he full restores with Hail bringing us below half. In comes his final Pokemon, an insanely powerful and bulky Snorlax, for which I switch into Dr. Smash knowing the resisted Body Slam will hit, and even if we got paralyzed, I know he'll now go for the non-resisted Crunch. So I can execute the final stage of my plan by switching into the GOAT himself, Rickethy, resisting the incoming Crunch and responding on the next turn with a Choice Banded base 105 attack, 120 power close combat, which gets the range to knock down that beast and win the final battle of the game. We did it. We defeated Red, became the champion, and got all 16 badges. We beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon StormSilver, my first Rom Hack. What an experience that was. From the new encounters to the base stat modifications making underused Pokemon viable, the new items, the secret boss fights like Giovanni, that was truly a wonderful experience through and through. Probably the most fun I've had playing Pokemon in years. Thanks to Drayano for creating such an awesome game, and thanks to you, the viewers, for sticking with me and supporting the channel. If you like these ROM hack videos, please be sure to subscribe and drop a like. And if you want to support the creation of the next one and to see the trailer for it early, please consider becoming a channel member. Thanks for joining me on this adventure, everyone. This has been SilphSpectre, and I'll see you guys next time for another ROM Hacks journey.